Well, slap my chucks, the mic still sucks. Also, sorry that this video took a bit longer to come out. I had to go to the ER, so hope I don't die. Best games, it's best games time. Time to talk about best games I played. I was a little bit split on whether to talk about my favorite games that came out this year versus my favorite games that I played this year, because those are different lists, but I decided to go with the former just because I wanted to put a cap on 2022. Despite playing over 30 titles that came out in this year alone, I didn't get to a lot of the ones that I wanted to. Here's the most notable ones. I will get to them eventually, I just haven't yet. Let's do a few honorable mentions. A few games that I enjoyed and felt like mentioning but didn't think that would be everyone's cup of tea or hovered squarely around the good mark were Steel Rising, Midnight Fight Express, Thymesia, Stray, Shadow Warrior 3, TMNT Shredder's Revenge, and Return to Monkey Island. The last two I probably would have liked more if I was into those genres, but I still had a good time with them. None of these games are bad. I think Steel Rising and Thymesia are better than their Metacritic scores for sure, even if they aren't pioneers in the Souls-like genre. Midnight Fight Express and Shadow Warrior 3 are big, dumb fun, and Stray is cat. They're all enjoyable games that help flesh out the year in its slower moments. Just a notch above that for me, like one tier higher, are Need for Speed Unbound, Evil West, High on Life, Somerville, and Bayonetta 3. These are all the games that I had a really great time with in the moment, but I probably won't remember them when looking back on the year. They were all very solid. Evil West is a nice throwback, High on Life is funnier than I expected, although you do have to like this style of humor to enjoy the game at all. Need for Speed Unbound is a nice way to unwind, Somerville still gave me some great imagery despite not living up to the creator's past work, and Bayonetta 3 I didn't find nearly as good as everyone else, but it was a decent time waster, it was still fun. And last up for the honorable mentions are the games that just missed the top 10 list. That's Ollie Ollie World, Infernax, The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, and Rogue Legacy 2. Ollie Ollie World is just pure fun top to bottom. Infernax is a great homage to early Castlevania games. It's very tightly crafted. The Stanley Parable is a cult classic game that got one of the most unique remaster treatments we've ever seen in the Ultra Deluxe edition, providing us basically with a whole new game's worth of content, and Rogue Legacy 2 is everything you could want from a roguelite. It's highly approachable, has a great art style, and knows exactly how to balance its many mechanics. I still need to go back and finish it, but I enjoyed what I played. Alright, now that that's all out of the way, let's get to the real main course here. Number 10, Metal Hellsinger. I've been saying for a while that rhythm is going to become a bigger and bigger part of games going forward as we see all the unique ways it's been attached to different genres, and of what I've played, Metal Hellsinger is the best of the bunch so far. The soundtrack goes so hard. Even as somebody who doesn't listen to metal in his free time, I can still appreciate the quality of the music here, and I loved going back and beating my own scores. I'd like to remind everyone that I was one of the top ranked players in the world at one point in Metal Hellsinger. Of course, that was before 99% of its player base had access to it, but it's still technically the truth. It just provided me with a really fun, replayable shooter experience that was more approachable and visually appealing than BPM, while being just as groovy and tense as the new Doom games. Metal Hellsinger is a certified banger. Number 9 is Cult of the Lamb, a game that bombards you with its weird, satanic personality, and a game that could have gotten away with doing a lot less if it wanted to. This could have been a very straightforward dungeon crawler with a Happy Tree Friends edge and a cutesy, culty, hip-hop soundtrack. That's all weird enough as is, and it would have caught a lot of attention, but you could argue that the dungeon crawling isn't even the real game here, and the real drive is building your cults. Very few games have made me care about building up my own little empire or city or house. I'm not a Civ, Sims, Animal Crossing, etc. kind of guy. I only really got into this stuff in Ni no Kuni, weirdly enough. But Cult of the Lamb is just so consistent in its tone, it's so clever with how it twists otherwise cliche ideas into twisted demonic counterparts, and it has endlessly weird imagery. Really, my biggest complaint is that buying it on Switch was a mistake because the choppiness and the bugs kind of threw me off in some moments, but this was one of the staple indies from this year. Speaking of standout indies, Rollerdrome. Some people found this game a little bit flat. My brother isn't the biggest fan of it, but I had a great time getting through this pretty concise package, especially in short spurts as a wind down, which I feel like is how it's meant to be played. It's not very long, although it maybe could have benefited a bit from shortening some of the later levels to encourage replayability for all the challenges and whatnot, but this is just a simple, fun idea executed really well. There are a lot of small, clever design decisions like using tricks and special maneuvers to replenish your ammo that really kept the loop fresh and engaging. Plus the levels are tight and fun to maneuver and exploit. The cel-shaded art was a very good choice. This is one of those games that doesn't do anything too fancy, but it just gets in and out with a really fun experience that isn't quite like anything you've played before. You definitely need a few of those throughout the year, and I think Rollerdrome was one of the best at it in 2022. Right above that is kind of the opposite of Rollerdrome, a massive open world that wants to do and master everything, Horizon Forbidden West. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Horizon. I've always thought its premise was amazing, but its dry, lifeless dialogue and repetitive, poorly directed action completely ruined it, but in Forbidden West, that shifts slightly. I think the story itself is worse, but I I at least see and feel emotions on the characters' faces at times, which does a lot for me. Aloy is still a boring character, the writing's still just okay, but the gameplay and world is what swings Forbidden West into the very good territory. Unlike Zero Dawn, Forbidden West's gameplay clicked with me instantly. I think this game has much more active, dynamic bosses and gameplay encounters in general. It expanded its list of creatures, brought in better side quests and activities, again from a gameplay and activity perspective, maybe not from a story one. It looks absolutely breathtaking. The Horizon franchise is still one that often plays it safe outside of its big idea, and is one that I find myself picking apart quite often, but there's also a lot of things it does right. And there's still plenty of sequences in this game, even if there were optional puzzles, that have stuck with me throughout the year. Tunic was awarded Most Overlooked in my very official Game Awards show a few days ago. This is another title with a very specific vision that it executes on beautifully, but it's a vision that's a bit more complicated than something like Rollerdrome. Tunic is a game that doesn't explain anything to you, except it kinda does. It has this fake language that it uses, so you never understand what exactly it's saying, but it also plays on the standard format of congratulations messages or item descriptions to give you a little tingle about what this gibberish is roughly translating to. As you explore the world, you collect pages of an in-game manual that explains power-ups and provides maps, only again, it's all written in that same language as before. But sometimes the pages will reference other ones or have visual hints that help you solve the puzzle of what everything does. You might be unsure how to get somewhere, and you'll look at the map and trace the landmass as far back as you can go and realize there's a hidden path that you have to track down in the actual world. Or you'll get an item and not know what to do with it and have to think logically about where it could actually be used. This is a game that feels better the more you love games. For all the old school gamers who miss the days when you had to figure stuff out yourself and consult game manuals and read magazines and listen to interviews and sing the Pledge of Allegiance and do the hokey pokey to find out how to hop across a small pond, this is basically your wet dream, so get on it immediately. Cracking the top 5 here is Neon White. I know I said I hated the story and dialogue in this one.
I know you don't remember, but you were once a great teacher, Mr. White.
But the good thing is, it is 1000% optional to the game and your enjoyment of it. Tap a button to fast forward these segments and they get skipped in 10 to 15 seconds, making way for one of the most addicting experiences I played this year. I basically locked myself in my room for 2 days and refused to move on from any level before I got the platinum time, initially also trying my damnedest to beat my brother's scores as well, and then eventually after I passed the point where he was, setting up my own times for him to try and chase after, and then we just went back and forth, back and forth. This game is a lot simpler than I was expecting. Basically you pick up these soul cards through traversing the level, and these give you the ability to shoot enemies. You get pistols, shotguns, grenade launchers, etc., and discarding them gives you a traversal ability. Using these items in the most optimal way and exploiting the level design leads to faster and faster clear times, and initially I was a little bit worried that I'd only be able to get good times if I pulled the most insane gamer combo of all time out of my ass, constantly switching cards and 360 no-scoping all these little demon bastards, but the game actually manages to remain simple while giving you the chance to feel like you're completely exploiting it. It only lets you have 2 types of cards at once, and even in the speediest of speedrun times, you usually don't have to switch your cards around all that often. This is a game that rewards your observation skills and makes you feel better about your shooting and platforming skills. It's a game that makes you feel like you're better at games than you are, and it's a game that keeps incentivizing you to come back and improve just a little bit more every time. Now, if it would only stop shoving all these big booba anime ladies in between, I'd really appreciate it. The only reason the Delicious Last Course is 4th is because it's short and it's a DLC, so it's technically not even illegible, but I really had to put it here. This game was the same amount of work in many ways as the original Cuphead, and Studio MBHR put all of that work into a much smaller selection of bosses. The result is a game that looks even better, plays even better, has more unique challenges, has more dynamic and exciting animations and transitions, brings in a new character that alters how you can play the base game, and all in all manages to take one of the best games of the 2010s and make its individual moments feel quaint in comparison. As incredible as the rest of this list, especially the top 2, are for how massive and consistently amazing they managed to be, and for as many amazing moments as we got in short spurts this year, for the duration that this DLC lasted, not a single thing that's come out in the last few years can even hold a candle to the quality found in the Delicious Last Course. Cuphead is a no-brainer purchase for anyone as long as you don't mind a challenge, and this is an absolute must-have addition to that experience. Sifu made a huge impact on me this year. Not only did I fall in love with its combat and its loop to the point that I made it my mission to beat the entire game without dying, but I also found it to be visually mesmerizing. Every level had its own unique look, lighting, and special sequences: burning buildings, peaceful monasteries, trippy chrome dream sequences, beautiful snowy nights, fights on top of crumbling and spiraling earth. The imagination of this art team is astounding. The combat made you actually feel like you were a martial artist, and through it all was such an addicting and clever play on linear and roguelite ideas that felt completely unique to this game. I think the biggest issue Sifu ran into was not having a solid difficulty curve. It spiked up way too far, way too fast, and then settled down as it went on, and I think that really hit some people the wrong way. And that's totally fair, I could see how it could be frustrating, but I was so challenged by this game and so determined to get better and better that I hardly batted an eye when I beat it because I knew my real goal was to do it all without a single slip up. This is one of the first times ever in a game where I blazed past the platinum trophy requirements and made my own more difficult challenges to take on for my own enjoyment. Throughout the year, they've been adding a lot of stuff to the game, including new difficulty modes and the ability to cut together your own little kung fu film from the game directly, which is awesome. They're even adding an arena mode in a couple of months. I was expecting Sifu to be good, but it was way better than I could have ever hoped, and despite coming out earlier in the year, I remember it more vividly than stuff I played just a couple of months ago. Really, the question was where God of War and Elden Ring were going to place for me at the end of the day, which would be first, which would be second. The same dilemma that a lot of people had this year, and while it could have easily gone either way, I think the Game Awards got it right. In my innovation versus mastery video, I made a point to say that I love both of these kinds of games, ones that perfect and ones that push us forward, so in no way do I discredit what God of War Ragnarok has done. The very few moments where it stumbles are almost inconsequential compared to the rest of it. It's simultaneously grand and intimate, funny yet deadly serious, beautiful yet dark. It perfects so many ideas that define modern single-player games without feeling too beholden to them. It's got its own spin on melee combat, its own spin on the semi-open world, and it's filled to the brim with worthwhile content. I don't have much more to say because I've said a lot about it over the last few weeks, but it deserves every bit of praise it gets. And it only hits number 2 because its competition was a game that was single-handedly responsible for the most exciting period that gaming's had in years. Every time I think back to Elden Ring, it just feels like this untouchable entity that I still can't believe I played. That's not to say it's untouchable in terms of it did absolutely nothing wrong. You can pick elements of it apart all day long, and to some people it just didn't work altogether, but as an idea, as a moment in time, as an experience, nothing can dampen the time I had with it. The amount of unbelievable scenery that would pop up out of nowhere, the scale and spectacle of the bosses, this is a game that I would play for hours while my brother hid away from spoilers, and then I'd let him play and just sit and watch, and when I went to bed, I'd watch other people play it for 3 hours as a wind down. It was a game with such a magnetic effect that my video output was impacted just as much from just this game releasing as it is now after I've come back for the holidays on a break without my old mic and my PC for editing. I just didn't want to do anything but experience Elden Ring for a full month. I didn't even make a true Elden Ring review or dedicated solo video on it because I didn't want to worry about capturing footage or jotting down my thoughts on it, interrupting the gameplay because I was just so invested. Elden Ring is far from a perfect game, and when people mention its reused mini bosses, the difficulty spike near the end, the balancing, whatever, I hear it, I understand it. I won't blindly say this game is the greatest thing ever invented and anyone who doesn't like it is stupid, and I've made it known that I don't think this is the only way forward for open world games. It's not necessarily the savior of a genre, but that said, if this game clicked with you, and I mean really clicked, none of that stuff really mattered. It was like magic, something that felt so exciting and that excitement was maintained for over 100 hours. It's one of those games that can't really be replicated. You can move on and make something else, stuff that's maybe even better and may share a lot of the same DNA, but it still won't be another Elden Ring. This will always be its own thing. It was lightning in a bottle, and even if it was the only game that released this entire year, it would have been a great year for video games. Those were all of my favorite games from 2022. I'm gonna make a 2023 most anticipated list and then a few smaller videos while I wait to get back to my regular setup. Let me know what you guys played this year, what your favorite games were. Make sure to subscribe and join the Discord if you're new, like the video, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.